Have you ever watched someone meet a dog for the first time, and felt nothing, while you were already on the floor, completely gone, letting a stranger's animal lick your face? Or maybe you are the other person. The one who watches someone fall apart over a pet, and genuinely cannot understand it. The one who thinks, it is an animal. Why does it hit that hard? Here is what nobody has ever told you about that difference. It is not personality. It is not how sentimental you are. It is not whether you had a good childhood or a hard one. It is your brain. Specifically, how your brain's bonding system is wired. And science has now identified the exact neurological reason why some people form bonds with animals that feel as deep and as real as any human relationship, while others simply do not feel it in the same way. This is not about who is more loving. It is not about who is a better person. It is about a biological difference in the way certain brains process the presence of another living being, and what that difference reveals about some of the deepest systems in the human brain. If you have ever loved an animal so deeply that it surprised even you, this video is going to explain something you have felt your whole life but never had the science to describe. Welcome to Paws and Psych, the science of what your pet does to your mind. To understand why some people bond more deeply with animals, we have to start with one of the most extraordinary discoveries in recent neuroscience. In 2024, researchers published a landmark study in the journal Advanced Science. They used EEG technology to measure the brain activity of humans and their dogs simultaneously, during 5 days of direct social interaction. What they found was this. When a person and their dog interacted, made eye contact, engaged in touch, spent time together, their brain waves began to synchronize. The neural oscillations of the human brain and the dog's brain started moving in the same rhythm. They called this interbrain coupling. And the stronger the coupling between a person and their dog, the stronger the bond they felt. But here is the finding that changes everything. The stronger interbrain coupling explains, at least partially, why we humans enjoy the companionship of dogs. But when the researchers introduced dogs with a mutation in a gene called SHANK3, a gene associated with social bonding, the interbrain coupling between those dogs and their human partners was dramatically weaker. The dogs with the gene mutation could not synchronize neurologically with their human partners the way normal dogs could. And the bond, measurably, was not as strong. Now here is why this matters for you. The same SHANK3 gene exists in human brains. It is the same gene that, when disrupted in humans, is associated with autism spectrum disorder, a condition characterized by differences in social bonding and connection. What this research is pointing toward, with growing scientific support, is that the capacity to form deep bonds with other beings is at least partially neurological. It is written, to some degree, in your biology, in the specific wiring of your social brain. And for people whose social bonding systems are highly active and sensitively calibrated, the bond with an animal does not just feel strong. It activates the same depth of neurological response as the deepest human connections in their life. Beyond the brain coupling research, there is a second biological explanation for why the bond feels so different from person to person. And it comes down to oxytocin, the bonding hormone we have covered throughout this channel. What most people do not know is that humans do not all have the same relationship with oxytocin. Research has consistently shown that people differ significantly in the sensitivity of their oxytocin receptors, the biological receivers that pick up the oxytocin signal in the brain. People with more sensitive oxytocin receptors experience bonding, warmth, and connection more intensely. The same social interaction produces a stronger neurochemical response in them than it does in someone with less sensitive receptors. Neuroendocrine modulators such as oxytocin and dopamine further potentiate affiliative responses. In dog-human dyads, mutual gaze and friendly touch can elevate oxytocin in both species, reinforcing bonding and pro-social motivation. But the key detail is this. For someone with highly sensitive oxytocin receptors, mutual eye contact with a dog, that specific moment when an animal looks directly at you and holds the gaze, produces a neurochemical event that is genuinely powerful. Not metaphorically powerful. Biochemically powerful. Research has confirmed that the oxytocin loop between humans and dogs during mutual gaze is real, measurable, and functions through the same biological pathway as the bond between a parent and a newborn child. For someone whose oxytocin system is highly sensitive, that loop hits harder. The warmth is more intense. The connection feels deeper. The absence of the animal is more acutely felt. This is not imagination. It is not projection. It is the specific profile of a nervous system that is wired to feel attachment strongly, and that responds to the non-judgmental, unconditional, consistent presence of an animal with a depth of neurochemical response that many people quietly spend their entire lives looking for in human relationships and never quite finding. But the neuroscience is only one part of the explanation. Because the brain's bonding system does not arrive fully formed. It is shaped, from a very early age, by experience. Children's early attachments allow them to treat their main caregiver as a safe base or secure base from which they can gain comfort and also explore their environment. These early experiences of human caring relationships create internal working models of emotional attachment that guide later relationships. And here is what research on childhood pet attachment has found. Children who grow up with pets have an early opportunity to form pet attachments, become emotionally connected to their pets through direct experience, spend quality time with their pets, and experience a sharing of significant moments. Children view pets as confidants for secrets, demonstrating this emotional connection. In other words, if you grew up with a pet that felt like yours, the internal working model your brain built for safe, reliable, non-judgmental attachment included an animal. Your bonding system learned early that animals were part of the category of beings it was safe to love. And that learning stays. A close relationship and emotional bond is more important than merely the presence of a pet within a home. Children with their own pets scored higher on pet attachment, possibly due to increased direct involvement and responsibility for the care of their pet, thus facilitating attachment. But here is the dimension that surprises people the most. For people who did not have secure human attachments in childhood, for people whose early experiences of being cared for were unreliable, painful, or absent, research shows they often report some of the strongest bonds with animals as adults. A 2024 study published in JAMA Network Open found that among women who had survived childhood abuse, higher pet attachment was associated with significantly lower anxiety and depression. Not just a little lower. Significantly lower. The bond with the animal was doing real protective work, in precisely the population that the human attachment system had failed most profoundly. The animal offered what the early human environment could not. A consistent, non-threatening, non-judgmental presence. And the brain, which had been looking for exactly that since childhood, recognized it. And held on. The research on who bonds most deeply with animals also reveals some consistent patterns across demographics that are worth being honest about. A 2025 study published in the journal Animals examined the factors that influence pet attachment in dog and cat owners. Consistent with previous research, attachment to dogs was generally stronger than to cats, with gender and age significantly affecting the attachment levels. Women and younger owners reported higher attachment. Women, on average, report stronger bonds with their pets than men. This is consistent across multiple studies across multiple countries. The likely explanation comes from research on oxytocin. Women show more robust oxytocin responses to affiliative interactions on average, and their social bonding systems tend to be more broadly engaged across relationships, both human and animal. Younger owners also tend to report stronger attachment. This aligns with what we know about neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to form new deep bonds is most active in younger life, and pet bonds formed in youth carry particular neurological weight. But here is the important caveat that the research also makes clear. These are patterns across populations, not rules about individuals. The man who is devastated by the loss of his dog, the older person who describes their cat as their closest companion, they are not outliers or anomalies. They are people whose specific neurological profile, life history, and attachment system have produced a bond that the population-level averages do not fully describe. The science of why people bond deeply with animals is not a story about one type of person. It is a story about specific neurological and experiential conditions, and those conditions can exist in anyone. If you are someone who bonds deeply with animals, if you are the person who is already on the floor when you meet a stranger's dog, or who talks to your cat like they understand every word, or who has loved an animal so much it genuinely surprised you, here is what the science is actually saying about you. Your social bonding system is highly active. Your oxytocin receptors respond strongly to affiliative signals. Your brain has been shaped, either by early positive experiences with animals, or by early human experiences that made animal bonds feel safer, to form deep cross-species attachments. Functional neuroimaging shows stronger coupling between perceptual and affective circuitry when participants view familiar mammalian interactions compared to low-familiarity taxa, shared biology, particularly the hormones that support bonding and care, strengthens these emotional ties. Your brain is not doing something unusual. It is doing what human brains were always capable of doing, forming real, neurologically genuine bonds with other mammals whose social signals our brains have been reading for thousands of years. And for many people, the bond they form with an animal is not a substitute for human connection. It is not a consolation prize. It is a genuine expression of a deeply active bonding system that is seeking, and finding, what it needs. The depth of what you feel for your pet is not an exaggeration. It is not too much. It is not a personality flaw that needs explaining or apologizing for. It is your brain doing what the best human brains have always done. Reaching across species. Recognizing a bond. And holding on. So the next time someone looks at you sideways for how much you love your animal, for how deeply it hit when you met them, or how completely you fell, you do not owe anyone an explanation. But if they ever want one, the science is right here. Your brain's bonding system is doing something real. Something documented, measured, and confirmed in peer-reviewed research. The interbrain coupling is real. The oxytocin response is real. The depth of what you feel is proportional to the neurological reality of the bond, not to what anyone else thinks you should feel about an animal. The people who feel it the deepest are not weak. They are not dramatic. According to the science, they are people with highly active social bonding systems, brains that are doing exactly what human brains evolved to do, just across one more species than most people expected. At Paws and Psych, this is what we do every single video. The science your pets cannot tell you about themselves, and the science that explains what they do to you. Subscribe. Because in our next video, we are going to explore the research on something that almost every pet owner does daily, and almost none of them know is changing their brain. Talking to your pet. The actual neuroscience of why you do it, what it does, and what it says about you.